and welcome to day 2 of Vlogmas 2020. Today's video is my December TBR. So these are all the books that I'm planning on reading in the month of December. Before we get onto them, all 23 of them, pretty optimistic TBR, but I mean, I reckon I could do it. That's a book a day until Christmas Eve with sort of like 1 day's grace. Let's talk about my Christmas jumper. Try and wear a different Christmas jumper or a different Christmas top every single day for Vlogmas. This one is a really old one. It's from H&M. It is sort of like tinsely red material. It's lovely, it's cozy. They also did it in black and silver the year that I bought this red one. I deeply regret not getting the silver one, but the red one is still nice and it's not itchy. It just feels very comfy and cozy. Hair's still quite bright, isn't it? Having a hair wash at some point tomorrow, so hopefully it will fade a little bit. Hopefully. So as I said, I'm going to be talking about my books that I'm planning on reading in the month of December. Now, I will start with the new books that I've got my hands on this month, not this year, sorry. So these are all new books that are appearing on my December TBR for the first time. Then the second half are books that are sort of like old favourites that tend to crop up on my TBR every year. So if you've been here for a while, for a few Vlogmases, first of all, let me know down below how long you've been here for. I've got a cup of tea here as well. David's just made me a nice cup of tea. How many Vlogmases you've seen over the years. But yeah, we're going to start with the new books that I'll be reading for the first time this year, and then we're going to move on to books that I've had previously. So let's start with a book that I'm actually starting. I mean, by the time this video's out, hopefully I've already started this, because this is for my Vlogmas Patreon book club, and that's The Miracle on Ebenezer Street by Catherine Doyle. So my Patreon Vlogmas book club, we had a, what's that on the floor down there, David? An olive.
An olive?
It's very off colour. It must have been there a while. I've just moved the footstool. Could you pick it up before Minnie eats it? Wow. Yeah, so my Patreon Vlogmas book club, David joins in at Christmas, which is lovely, and I pick a book and David picks a book, and then there's a vote, and this year David's book won, The Miracle on Ebenezer Street. Now I need to start this pretty early doors because David and I only have one copy between us, and we both need to have it read in time for Vlogmas book club, which is on the 20th of December, and David wants to read it nearer the time so that he can remember it. So this is a middle grade sort of fantasy book about George, who is spending his 3rd Christmas without his mother since his mother died, and it's set partly in an old curiosity shop called Marley's Curiosity Shop, and there he finds a mysterious snow globe, which I imagine has something to do with this lovely snow globe on the front cover. So yeah, that's the book we're going to be reading and discussing. So need to get cracking on with that. I mean, I don't think it looks beautiful. Like all the little chapters have like little illustrations at the beginning of each one. There's no illustrations throughout apart from the sort of chapter heading illustrations. Is that what I mean? But yeah, it looks like it's going to be really lovely. And then also another book that I would have started by the time you see this is A Poem for Every Winter Day. This is a collection of poetry pulled together by Ali Aziri. Now you may well have seen the autumn one that David and I read throughout autumn, so from the 1st of September. Oh yeah, I won't finish this though, will I? Because this goes on until the end of February. It does, until the end of February. So there is a poem every day in this book, a selection of 2 in fact, every day throughout winter. So this one won't be finished in December, but it'll definitely be read throughout December. And David and I, as with the autumn book, we're taking it in turns to read aloud a poem to the other person every day. Now we had a lovely time with the autumn one. I probably had a slightly lovelier time with the autumn one. David found there's Remembrance Sunday and things like that during autumn in the UK, and a lot of the poems were sort of like war poems. I think maybe it gave David sort of like GCSE English poetry lesson flashback, but yeah, we're hoping for a lot more wintry poems in there, but I still really love the autumn collection, so yeah, we'll be cracking on with that. Then this is a new book that came out this year. This is Tinsel. So this is actually the proof copy, and this is by Shibble Pounder, who's written this, and this is all about the girls who invented Christmas. So it sounds fantastic. I can't wait to read it. It says, what if somewhere along the way we've all got the Santa Claus story a bit long? Join Blanche Claus and her best friend Rinky for a funny festive sleigh ride you'll never forget. And it's a magical tale of friendship, sleigh rides and mince pie picnics, and it's the perfect book to curl up with this winter. Funny, feminist and with a huge heart, it's a gloriously Christmassy adventure that will delight even the biggest Grinch. So that sounds like it's going to be really fun as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. And similar, there's a lot of these lovely sort of like chapter headings, lovely bits bits of art, but yeah, that's the proof copy of Tinsel, so excited for that. Then, as I mentioned for the Patreon book club, David and I do a, we both picked a book, and the book that I picked that lost the vote, but I'm still going to read, is Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory. This is a romance novel, and yeah, I don't often read much romance, but I'd heard about this, I think I heard about this last Christmas, and I had it on my sort of wish list, and saw it secondhand online and was like, oh, I'm gonna get myself that. I think I bought it in like March or something, and this is about Vivian Forrest, and she tags along on one of her daughter's work trips to England. Her daughter is a stylist and she's styling one of the members of the royal family. When Vivian arrives there, she is looked after by the royal staff, as she's Maddie's mother, and Malcolm has worked for the Queen for years and he's never given a personal private tour until now, and him and Vivian have a little love story, which is like, number one, lovely because it's a sort of like love story and I've been loving The Crown, but also like it sounds like it's a love story for sort of like a bit of an older generation, which just sounds lovely and nice. So looking forward to that, Royal Holiday, that'll be nice. Then there's this one which I've bought one of these. No, I haven't bought one. I had one of these. These are the British Library crime classics, sort of like the Christmassy ones. I've had one of these before and I found it ever so boring. I didn't get on with it at all, but I picked this up in a charity shop. Actually, the one that I had tried reading before is actually on the back. It's here. It's Mystery in White, it says, a Christmas crime story. This is The Santa Claus Murder by Mavis Doriel Hay. Now, I'm often hearing that these are very cosy and enjoyable to sit and read. So yeah, this is, I don't really know anything about this. So it says, Aunt Mildred declared that no good could come of the Melbury family Christmas gatherings at their country residence Flaxmere, so when Sir Osmond Melbury, the family patriarch, is discovered by a guest dressed as Santa Claus with a bullet in his head on Christmas Day, the festivities are plunged into chaos. There's always like a Christmas family gathering and like a murder or something, isn't there? So right, next up, oh, the next two books are actually slightly linked together. So in November I filmed an episode of a podcast that I'm very fond of called Quick Book Reviews. Philippa runs the podcast Quick Book Reviews. I will link it down below, and I am on their Christmas episode. I don't know when it's coming out yet. When I do, I'll tweet or Instagram it about it, but we talked about 5 each of our favourite Christmassy books, which was really, really lovely. And not to spoil the podcast, but 2 of the books that Philippa mentioned, I then went and bought and I'm planning on reading. So the first one is this little hardback picture book called The Empty Stocking. It's written by Richard Curtis, him of Love Actually and About Time and all of those lovely things, and Rebecca Cobb. And this is I've actually got a lovely little Christmassy bookmark in there as well. And this is, yeah, a really nice, it's sort of like although it's a picture book still, there's some, it's quite wordy for a picture book, but the illustrations look really fun and sort of like what I like to call, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, but sort of like scruffy art, which I really, really love. It reminds me a lot of Jessie Cave's artwork. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that. I think I might even read that, like that. This might be read by now because I was planning on reading this on the 1st of December. And then also she mentioned Val McDermid's book Christmas Murder. So this is a short story collection of Christmassy crime stories, and she said that they actually read like, so sometimes when you read books which are set at Christmas, you wonder if like they were originally written and then Christmas was sort of like elbowed in there somewhere, but these actually read as really sort of like Christmassy stories which have crime in them rather than crime stories that they thought, oh, we could make that Christmassy. So yeah, and she also said that they're really, really gripping. I don't think I've ever read any Val McDermid, and she is sort of like considered the queen of crime writing. In fact, this very book says, Queen of Crime, Val McDermid is a master of the dark and sinister story, and these powers are demonstrated in full force in Christmas's Murder, a festive collection of chilling tales. From a baron whose body is discovered beneath a silver birch tree to an author who is haunted by the spiteful presence of a jealous writing partner, the characters McDermid conjures are enigmatic and dangerous, never above suspicion. So yeah, and also this front cover is so, so lovely. It's got all this foil on it, lovely robin. Yeah, I'm gonna crack on with that early doors, I think. And then, oh, I was gonna say 2 more, but it's actually 3 more on the news side of things. This is This Winter by Alice Oseman. This is a novella set within the Heartstopper series and the Solitaire series, I think it is. So this is following Tori, Charlie and Oliver Spring. They're trying to get through Christmas with minimum drama, but you may be familiar, well, I'm familiar with these characters because I've read the Heartstopper books, which is a collection of graphic novels like sort of diarising the love story between Charlie and Nick, two lads who are at secondary school, and this follows Charlie's family over Christmas. So yeah, it's only a little short novella with sort of like graphic novel aspects really, because there's quite a lot of illustrations throughout. Like, and again, I really like the artwork in these. So I'm reading that for my book club online with my pals, so looking forward to discussing that. And then I've got this novella, which is one that I'm really, really looking forward to. I've got like, I don't ever read romance, but I've got 2 romance books in this, yeah, 2 romance books in this TBR. And this one is Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera, and this is following 2 girls, Kiskaya and Sully, and they have both left where so I think Kiskaya lives in the Dominican Republic, and I don't know where Sully's from, but they're both taking part in the Holiday Baking Challenge, which this year is taking part in Scotland, and there's a bit of a love story between them, and I think they're working together, and they've got work to each other's strengths and ignore each other's weaknesses and things like that. So Christmas, love story, baking, Scotland, sounds like it's going to be great, so looking forward to that. And then the last new one I've got is a picture book, and I bought this in a garden centre like in September, and this is Search and Find the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. So last year David and I did Search and Find the Christmas Carol, which I got out from the library, and this is a similar, well, it's basically exactly the same thing. So it is the story of the Nutcracker told in sort of like very short, almost like discussion points, and then beneath that you have a list, some little photos of things to find, and I had a nice time reading that last year, and the illustrations are lovely, and yeah, it's just a fun thing to do. So David and I will be doing that together at some point. So as I said, those are my books that I've got new this year that I'm reading for the first time, and then these are some old favourites, because if you can't read your old favourites at Christmas, when on earth can you read them? Let's have another bit of drink. So the first 2 are audio books that I'm going to be listening to, so even though I've got the actual physical book to show you. And the first one is Twas the Nightshift Before Christmas by Adam Kay. I read this last year, but I've actually got the audiobook out of this from the library at the moment on my Libby app. And Adam Kay is the author of This Is Going to Hurt, which is a collection of sort of parts of his diaries whilst he was a junior doctor training to be a consultant in an obstetrics and gynecology department. That's one of my favourite books of all time. This came out last year, a sort of like Christmas excerpts, so he went back to his diaries, drew on sort of like Christmas moments, and put them in this little short book, and I really loved reading it last year. And I've also now, so I've read This Is Going to Hurt, I've listened to the audiobook of This Is Going to Hurt, and now I'm going to listen to the audiobook of Twas the Nightshift Before Christmas. Adam Kay's delivery is fantastic. He's a comedian, so he really knows how, well, he's not a doctor anymore, he is now a comedian. His delivery and his turn of phrase are just perfect, and I just find this hilarious, so I'm going to be listening to that. And then, as always, I'm going to be listening to the audiobook of Christmas Days by Jeanette Winterson, which is a collection of 12 stories and 12 feasts for 12 days. So throughout this, Jeanette Winterson, this is like one short story, and then a recipe and a little bit of sort of information behind that recipe. So there's 24 sort of different things in here. So either be a short story or a little bit of non-fiction, like essay writing with a recipe. And I love it. And do you know what? There's some creepy stuff in here as well. There's some little ghost stories which are a little bit creepy, but because I know how they end now, I'm able to tell me to do it. But yeah, this is a lovely book. So if you were looking to get someone like a little gift of something to read over Christmas, then this is a great book. But the audiobook is also really good. Jeanette herself narrates the non-fiction bits, and then there's another narrator whose name I can't remember, which does a really good job of narrating the stories as well. And there's some great, like I said, there's some spooky stories, but there's also some really like high fun stories, particularly the one about the snow mama. I love that one. Yeah, really great. So looking forward to getting to that. And then I've got this little collection of, I'm not going to go into these because I mention these every single year, but these are a collection of Carol and Duffy little poetry books that she brings out every year. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I don't think she's bought one out this year. So I've got all of the ones that I've collected over the past 6 years, but I haven't got a new one this year. So one of them is one of my favourite books of all time, and that's Another Night Before Christmas, and that is, so each of them is written by Carol and Duffy, but they're all illustrated by different illustrators. This one's illustrated by Rob Ryan. Then I've got Mrs. Scrooge, A Christmas Tale. I don't know who that one is. Oh, Posy Simmons, that one's illustrated by. Pablo Picasso's Noel, that's illustrated by Leah Malpete. Last year's one, which was Frost Fair, which is illustrated by Davis Della Heras, which is about the frost fair on the Thames when the Thames froze over. Then The King of Christmas, illustrated by Lara Hawthorne. And then the Wren Boys, illustrated by Dermot Flynn. So yeah, unless I'm mistaken, and I mean, I've looked pretty hard, I can't seem to find one that she's got out this year. And then this is a return to a Christmas book that I read, like, I think I might have read this like when I just started doing BookTube, so a good 6 years ago. This is another collection of short stories. This is called A Snow Garden and Other Stories by Rachel Joyce, and these are sort of interconnected short stories with characters that tend to appear in each other's stories, and it's set over Christmas. So I think there's like a pop star returning from a tour to spend Christmas with his parents, if I remember rightly. There's one which is called The Faraway Smell of Lemon, which is about a woman who goes into a cleaning shop, but each character, as I said, has like appears in another story as well, so they're all interlinked, and that's quite fun and nice and cozy as well. Then I've got, I'll leave that one till last because that appears on Christmas Eve. Then I've got this book which I got last year and I started reading and I never finished it, and that's The 12 Birds of Christmas by Stephen Moss. This is a non-fiction book about birds, and I used to be a fond bird watcher when I was a young girl, and oh, I can show you how far I got. I got page 12. I got to page 12 last year, so I didn't get very far, but it's the birds that appear in the 12 Days of Christmas song, and a bit of history about them, background, nice little bit of nature writing and some nice drawings of those very birds. So yeah, hopefully I'll get around to that. This was new last year and I read it and really enjoyed it. This is a children's literary Christmas anthology by the British Library, and this is edited by Anna James, and it's got it's really nicely pulled together. The illustrations and everything are lovely, and it's got little bits of stories or short stories and stuff from books that contain Christmas. So one of my favourite bits is the bit from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe where Father Christmas comes and gives the kids their presents. That bit appears in there. There's a story from Mallory Blackman, The Frost Fairies. There's lots of like sort of like more modern stuff and more old-fashioned stuff. It's really nicely pulled together. It's a lovely thing, and I just remember very vividly starting it in the book in the bath last year and being like, this is bloody lovely. Then the last two are picture books. Catherine Rundle's One Christmas Wish is a picture book that I got out from the library not last year, the year before, and then since then have bought my own copy because I love it so much. It's a lovely Christmassy story, sort of interspersed with these beautiful double pages of some of the most beautiful illustrations I've ever seen, done by Emily Sutton, sorry. And yeah, it's a lovely short story about a young lad whose parents have gone out Christmas Eve, and he's making some, he doesn't want to be on his own on Christmas Eve. So yeah, lovely. And then speaking of Christmas Eve, every year David and I read aloud The Jolly Christmas Postman to one another by Janet and Alan Olberg. The Christmas Postman and the Jolly Christmas Postman and just The Jolly Postman were two books that I absolutely adored when I was younger. I didn't have them. If I ever went to friend's house and they had them, I remember sort of like getting them out and opening all the letters and things like this. This is a lovely book about the postman going and delivering different sort of letters to each place, and they've got like Christmas cards in, so it's very interactive and lovely for children and for people who are in their early 30s, because David and I read it to each other every year at Christmas. One of us takes the poem, one of us takes inside the envelope. So I can't remember who's doing what this year, can you?
No, I don't think we read it last year.
Because you weren't very well.
So I wasn't very well.
Returning after a year off. So those are the books that I plan to read throughout December. Let me know what books you are planning to read throughout December. Let me know if you are planning on reading any of the books I've got here. As I said, 23 books. Bit optimistic, but it may be a Christmas miracle. Might get them all done. And I'll see you all again tomorrow for another Vlogmas video. Goodbye!